right, Mopar people, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justmoparjoe. I've been owing y'all a little update on my 400 build and which intake I'm going to choose. A few reasons why. Also, dyno update. I got my dyno. I've been talking to the place here in Arkansas for early 2023. So obviously it won't get done before the end of this year. Certain dates and openings they've been sharing, so I can jump on board there. I've got to get the engine done first, and I want to get it put on my run stand soon so that I know I have zero issues before it actually goes to the dyno. So should be good to go for that. I'm going to do a video on putting the intake, installing the intake on the engine, going step by step on that stuff. But so if you will remember, several months back I ended up going to Michigan, and I got a large sum of Mopar parts. In those parts was this old tricked out Holly Street Dominator intake, and it is for the 383, 400, I guess a 361 too if you wanted to do that. But it's somebody's old hot rod intake, and here's why I like it. So if you know anything about the Holly Street Dominators, they used to have an EGR. So the EGR stuff would be on the back, and this one has actually been removed. Let me show you this. So someone's taken it off and aluminum welded that up. So that's pretty trick. It had to be somebody's, like I said, old hot rod intake of some kind. And that would go through, there'd be a hole right down there in the bottom. That's been welded up. But if you look in the ports, if I can get my light out. There we go. Seeing a little bit of there. The stuff's been cleaned up in here some. So they did a little bit of light porting on the inside of the intake when they were doing their other cleanup stuff. And I know this intake is dirty right now, but I wanted to show it to you anyway. So they did a little bit of cleanup on the inside. There we go. You can kind of see blended in the transition some. Both directions. Let me show you the ports on this dude. The pipe plug that they have screwed down into the intake. And not only did they screw it down, but they ported it. So you can see down in there. They went about 3.5 inches, 3 inches in. Hit every wall. Nice port match job. I mean, really, I couldn't have done that any better if I tried. So you can see the window's been opened up. See where someone actually used a scribe and scribed this, probably blued it up and scribed it. All the ports look that nice. I mean, it's that little bit of porting, I think will, I would call that more than a gasket match. Like I said, it's on in about 3 inches there. If not, I would call that a really good gasket match. But even where that plug was, you can see it's been ported into and smoothed out. So that's nice. I'm excited to try this intake on the engine. I also have an Edelbrock RPM, Performer RPM for a 383. It has 0 port work on it. So I'll have this intake to compare to the Performer RPM if I can get them both to the dyno. I know a lot of people were concerned about the heat crossover, but I've got aluminum heads. So that does not bother me at all. I'll give you a quick, very brief look on how the intake looks setting on the engine. I've blown it out. There's a little dirt inside, but there's no trash that can actually fall out right now. So let's lay it on the engine. And here's another old hot rodder trick. See the holes there? It's got one on, that one actually has 2. One on every corner. A lot of guys, when fitting their intakes up, would drill those holes out. So they would drill into the head and use that as a dowel pin to align it forward and backwards. That's kind of a cool old trick. Let me shine down so you can see a port. There you go. So you see that port is just a little bit lower than the port of the intake's lower than the port of the head. That's good because my gasket still has to go on valley pan and stuff. And I'm going to adjust that stuff in a different video and show it all to you. But that's my intake. She's kind of an old trick piece, and I think it'll be cool. I'll throw my spacer on here. I believe Holley rates this intake from 1500 to 6500. And I don't plan on turning this engine more than 6500 just because it's the old cast crank 400. The cam limits it just a little bit, but I've got to know where the power falls off and RPMs it actually likes. See that bit of gap there sitting on my t-shirt. But anyway, I'm excited to try it. I've got my old Edelbrock over here. There's my Edelbrock over here, brand new in the package. It's actually been wrapped in saran wrap, but I traded this a long while ago to a viewer on the channel. He needed one for a 440, and he had one for a 383 or 400. So we just swapped straight up. It's never been mounted on anything, but it is the Performer RPM. So what I'd like to do on dyno day is carry this intake along with me, have the other one on, and swap them out and do a dyno test. I mean, that's what it's all about, getting the results. So I just went ahead and yanked them out, put them side by side. Before I show you that, I want to show you here just this is one of the Valley Pan gaskets, and it is almost exactly perfect with that intake. Ed and Wayne at Ed's machine did that port work for me on this, just opening it up just to the perfect point. If this gasket hangs over just anywhere, I'm going to trim it, but take a look at that. That's my port size right now on these heads. And then we'll bring it over to the Holley intake. You can see there, almost perfect. Hangs over just barely on the sides. So I'll trim it for both. Be sure I don't have any obstruction there. See the center divider also. I mean, someone did a nice job trimming that. Here's that Edelbrock intake. Check this out. There we go. So that's a massive flow restriction right there that I can live without. I may try to find some time before the dyno to open this one up so it could be almost equal to this. I don't know if I can go to that level, but just gasket matching some may be good. What I wanted from you all is actually, I can turn this dude around. There we go. There's your apples to apples. Which intake would you run on this engine for max horsepower? So if I'm trying to hit the number 500, do you choose the dual plane, Performer RPM, or do you choose the single plane, Holley Street Dominator, that's been ported and EGR deleted? Those are the two that I have. I don't really see a reason to try to sell them both and buy another intake for what I'm doing. They're both, I think, rated 1500 to 6500 RPM. And I can run a spacer on both. So I understand this is a little bit shorter right now, but I can add that plenum volume back with a 1 or 2 inch spacer. Which one's going to give me more torque? You know, having the short stroke of this 400, it'd be nice to have some low end grunt, but also the 400 is going to rev to 6,500 very quickly. I'll probably have a 4,000 stall or better in the car, so I'll be out of that 1,500 to 4,000 range almost instantly. So I'll ask my gurus out there, which one do you choose for this race car? Car weighs 2,950 pounds without me in it. And which one do you choose for the dyno to make the most power numbers on the dyno? I appreciate y'all watching and commenting, and I'll catch you next time.